That's the sound of a code red alert that goes off when missiles are on the way. Once you hear it, you have 15 to 30 seconds to find a shelter. Yesterday, in Ashkelon, it went off 19 times in the morning alone. I know that because I talked to members of a Jewish Federation of North America group that went there on a 3-day solidarity mission to Israel, who were there for 6 of those code reds, driving, and literally had to get out of their car and hit the ground. That same group had made a Shiva call to 2 of the families in Kiryat Malachi, whose loved ones were killed by the Hamas rockets just last week. The report I got on that visit was that the families were just blown away by American Jews traveling 6,000 miles for 3 days and taking the time to be with them. An Israeli friend of mine, actually the group's interpreter, when telling me the story, said she was in tears as she translated that they finally understood what it meant to be part of the Jewish people, who cared for each other no matter where in the world they were needed. That, they said, was what being Jewish is all about. So imagine 19 times in Ashkelon just yesterday morning. 19 times people had to stop their cars, stop walking, stop eating, stop doing anything normal, and just seek shelter if they could. If not, you just throw yourself to the ground, get as protected as you can, and then throw your hands over your head. And some say those were the lucky ones. Some, including thousands of children, have been imprisoned in bomb shelters for days on end. Parents too fearful to leave their homes or to let their children just play on the street. For many in the south of Israel, particularly around Sderot, that compromise of a normal life has been going on to some degree for over a decade. Thousands of times they've heard that song. But this time the trauma of terror has expanded its range to encompass over 5 million people. Jews, Arabs, and Palestinians alike, as the senseless rockets from Gaza are indiscriminate as to who is targeted and who is victimized. All civilians can be killed, wounded, or traumatized. Men, women, children, the elderly, and the disabled. Be they Jewish, Arab, Christian, Muslim, Palestinian, or just a passerby. Tonight I want to make sure we remember the people impacted by Hamas terrorism. Terrorism isn't war. War, strange as it sounds, has rules. Terrorism only exists to terrorize. To terrorize innocent civilians. Our family in Israel lives with the stress and impact of that terrorism all the time. Parents live in fear. Children are not in school. The shelters, and I've been in those shelters, are prisons, claustrophobic to their inhabitants. So in response to this latest crisis, our national federation system, sadly a system with too much experience in how to respond, has established, as Jerry said, a $5 million Israel Terror Relief Fund to serve the immediate needs of the victims, while long-term assessments of how to rebuild the devastation are established. And quite honestly, We were afraid to call it an emergency fund. We didn't want to schweigen about. We don't know if we're going to be back here in 6 months, but we know there's people that are being impacted now and need our help. The fund that I just mentioned has been officially endorsed by and is in cooperation with both the Union for Reform Judaism and the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism and many others as an expression of the need to come together at this time and to coordinate our efforts. Our various partners on the ground, the American Joint Distribution Committee, the JDC, the Jewish Agency for Israel, the Israel Trauma Center, World Order, and others, in conjunction with the government of Israel, convene every single day to coordinate and validate the needs of the victims so as to avoid duplication, to be as responsive as possible, and to use our precious resources that we provide as efficiently as they can. High on the list of needs is the ability to provide some degree of relief to those children most impacted, those being closest to Gaza. Programs have already been mobilized subject to IDF security constraints. In other words, they don't necessarily let the children travel. To take some of these kids to the north, let them enjoy being children for a day or two, give them a chance to have one uninterrupted night of sleep, a night without sirens, even if they still, as teenagers, many of them teenagers, even if they still feel the need to share a bed with their brother or sister or closest friend, because they are so afraid to confront the bad dreams and the noise of the sirens all by themselves. Also high on the list are the elderly and disabled who are homebound, unable to see their doctors, unable to receive medical care, get the medicines they need, meals they need, or receive services they've become dependent on. They are confined, they are confused, they're anxious. They desperately need our help. And the hundreds and thousands of small businesses that have been forced to close their doors still have expenses, still have cash flow problems, and have owners who are just too impacted psychologically to move forward. Our terror fund, we have a fund called the Victim of Terror, has, can, and will help those people too. And millions of otherwise normal people are tired, depressed, stressed, anxious, and traumatized. Trauma centers and help hotlines are bursting, and new staff must be added immediately. We can, we must, and we will help them too. And these are just the immediate needs that have been identified in the last few days. As Jerry said, first we committed to raising $150,000 as our fair share of the $5 million fund, and now we have to do it. With the large crowd that's here tonight, I'm hopeful we can meet that goal and even exceed it, as we'll probably need more funds in the future. $50 provides 1 day of respite for one child. $100 provides food and many other support services for the homebound elderly and disabled. $1,000 will impact the lives of so many. And the more you can do, the more we can do. Our annual campaign, which so many of you support, does so much, but it cannot meet all of our regular and daily needs. That's why we're always asking for your ongoing support. But tonight, however, we're asking you for what to many is a modest show of support, and for some may be a large stretch. But tonight, every dollar will go directly to those people who I just talked about at a time when they need our help the most. So I'm asking you, if you received an envelope on the way in, please complete it if you can, and we have large tzedakah boxes out there you can put them into. Some of those envelopes have return addresses, 1440 Spring Street, Atlanta 30309. You can go to our webpage and make an online contribution. You can even text DEFENSE to 51818. We're always anxious to ask for money, but today that's the biggest support we can provide to the people who are being impacted by all those rockets and iron domes you read about. And after you do that, after you do what you can to help us meet those needs, there's other things you can do as well. You can contact your congressman or women, tell them why your support of Israel is so important to you, and ask them to support Israel at this very critical time. You can talk to your friends and family. It's important to be educated, to break down these myths, to feel an understanding of why Israel has to do what they do. The world has set a double standard and does everything to make us feel bad about what Israel does. We need to be the ones who are proud and understand why and are supportive and explain that to all of our friends, family, co-workers, and others. And friends or relatives or acquaintances in Israel, email them, call them, let them know you're there. They feel very isolated at times like this. And lastly, if there's any way you can do it, go to Israel, because being there is one of the most powerful signs of support you can provide. We will be announcing opportunities in the future to join us on various missions to Israel and other opportunities. My boss will say, no, don't wait for us. Go tomorrow if you can. They need you there. And thank you so much for being with us tonight to show the world that Atlanta stands with Israel and that we do care.